Welcome back to the Mark Loeffler Experience. Today, we have finally got it. We have finally got proof that investors are screwing it up for first-time home buyers. Let's talk a little bit about this, but we're going to dive into this article right here. And of course, it's better dwellings. And you know, they hate investors. I mean, they just do. And it's fine. It really doesn't matter. But, you know, Canada National Statistics Agency made investor-owned homes the subject of their latest data. Statistics Canada took a dive through tax data to estimate the share of investor-owned properties homes in 2020. Perfect, right? Like, this is what I've been asking for the whole time when they spout numbers. Confirming our observation last year, the data reveals investors scooped up most of the new supply in the most affordable segments at the expense of first-time homebuyers. Yes, okay, people are buying instead of first-time home buyers, but that's also an affordable rental stock, right? Like that's, well, this is in 5 provinces, and I don't know the landlord-tenant rules in all of them. I'm just going to say, in the most populous province in Canada, landlord-tenant rules are very heavily favored to the tenants. Therefore, a lot of people aren't going to build purpose-built rental properties because they don't know the outcome of their investments, and that makes it risky. Whereas, you know, provinces not named on this little diatribe from Better Dwelling, well, they have much more landlord-friendly rules, and they don't have a housing problem. They don't have a rental housing problem. They have vacancy rates north of 5%, 4 or 5%. They have an overabundance of rental housing. Just throwing that out there. I'm just you know, just gonna let that sit there while I have a drink of tea. Canadian real estate investment is overrepresented in the country's new supply. In Ontario, investors own just under a quarter of all housing, 24%. But I'm just gonna say, like, that is probably concentrated when you look at that and say, okay, there's a 200-unit building there, somebody owns that, it's a REIT, it's whatever. That's going to be a huge portion of that. I'm just putting that out there. But nearly a third of homes built after 2016. Similar in BC, investor owned a quarter, but 2 in 5 homes that were built after 2016. Like, this is, majority of that is in, obviously, condos, right? Like, they build buildings, investors buy them pre-construction, and they're either hoping for a capital gain, or, you know, now they charge earned income on it and sell it before they ever buy it, and or they're hoping to cash flow it and rent it after. So here's the thing, to prove their point, they do include 3 other provinces, because investor concentration is often dismissed as just an Ontario and BC issue. I think I brought this up before. But the data shows this isn't the case. In Nova Scotia, investors own 35% of total housing supply. And out there, I'm sure, like, you could actually build a purpose-built rental property and rent it, and that's probably why there's a higher portion that investor own. But, you know, it's still relatively affordable in Nova Scotia compared to those other 2 provinces. And you know, 39% of new supply, which is up a little bit over the total supply. And they're probably actually building purpose-built construction rentals there. So that would be some of the new supply coming on as well. Okay. Manitoba investors showed a much steeper climb, owning just under a quarter, so 24.1% of homes, but 42.1% of those built after 2016. And this is my issue here, okay? Like, I get that there's some fundamental issues here that we need to discuss, but when they put this article out here and they use 5 provinces out of 10, right? So does that mean those other 5 provinces don't support their story? So let's just leave them out. Why don't we have an unbiased reporting here and say, hey, this is what happens all across Canada because it's the same jurisdiction. I'm not saying, hey, you include the US, include this. Why not actually do a comparison between all 10 provinces on here and say, this is what's going on in all 10 provinces. And here's the most affordable province. If you want to own a first-time home in Edmonton, you can buy one for 300 grand, 250 grand. I don't even know how low. I mean, I could look it up on realtor.ca. But you can buy a home relatively cheap in Edmonton. You could buy, if you're spending $500,000 in Edmonton, you're getting a really, really nice home. Calgary average sale prices are just over 400. You're for 600-700 grand, you're getting a really nice home in Calgary. Now that's a starter condo in Ontario, in BC. But I guess the point is that would be apples to apples comparison. This is just, I'm trying to find something to support my argument that this is not just an Ontario and BC issue, because while we don't want to advocate to get rid of the landlord-tenant board or different rules that we think are favorable that make people read our newspaper, I mean, you can look at this. I don't, and I would argue that probably New Brunswick and Manitoba. I mean, Manitoba had some build, but New Brunswick wasn't really growing. It wasn't really building. So I would imagine the new stock, actually, it's less. Investors are buying less there. They're buying older stuff in New Brunswick. Look at that. That doesn't support their argument, I guess. But it's close, so they'll include that one. But I bet you the other ones are really, really skewed the other way. In Manitoba, I mean, there's a lot of older stuff there. So I'm sure that's why investors are buying newer things. I don't know. And, why would an investor in Ontario buy something new? Well, if I could buy something after 2018 that wasn't a residential unit, I don't have rent control. That's a huge incentive. So they've incentivized them to buy the new things, and then they cry about, oh my goodness, they're buying all the new stuff so new home buyers can't. Well, then they incentivize it. Why don't they just get rid of rent control altogether, bring everything to market rent, subsidize the people that are, paying $500 a month instead of having the landlords do it, and make it fair for everybody. And then, as I argued at a recent investor conference, that would increase labor mobility, it would increase productivity. I could go on that tirade forever, but I think I'm just wasting my breath because there's no political will to do that in Ontario at all. And I'm hoping that it doesn't happen in other provinces because, again, I think that's a big economic drag rather than having it open and people will build things and add product to the economy. But, and they do argue that this was done in 2020 and that the numbers will go up. And I'm going to guarantee they go up after 2020 because, let's be honest, it was that was fueled by cheap interest rates. And our investors were taking advantage of that. And now investors are getting hit because of that as well. So, you get column A, column B. I mean, you can buy, I'm seeing some of those pre-con constructions selling at or less than what they sold for at the beginning. So maybe you waited and now you're picking up those deals and you're like, oh, I'll buy that. I'll pay you 10 grand less than you paid the builder. I don't know, sounds okay to me. And where's the first time home buyers and all of that? I don't know, some of them are scared, some of them are taking advantage of this. Where are the investors in all of this? A lot of them are scared. A lot of them have, they were using their home equity line of credit, so the prices have gone up, so therefore they're not able to afford as much. I mean, it's the reality of the world we're living in right now. But yeah, I don't know, guys. I'll put a link to the article. You guys can read it and comment on it. Obviously, some of these statements like it's going to be a countrywide issue. Well, then why do you only have 5 provinces put on here? And I don't think, New Brunswick, yes, the rents have gone up, but not like Ontario. I don't know Nova Scotia. I haven't looked at their rents. Manitoba, I can guarantee you the prices aren't, you can still buy an affordable home in Manitoba. They've just included this because it's it makes our argument seem more realistic. That, you know, the politics of BC and Ontario aren't the causing factor of this housing problem. It's those darned investors, and they're killing it for everybody, and that's it. We can't fix it any other way. Shoot all the investors. That's it. Take them out. Can't invest in anything anymore. Nope, we're done. And that's all I have to say about that. All right. Looks like I'm probably going to be going out to Alberta again in early March. If you are looking at buying an apartment building out there, why don't you come and join me? We can go look at some of my apartments, and we can look at some stuff on the market, and look at a couple of my buddies' things, and we can hang out and we can just talk real estate for a couple days. Reach out to me on Instagram if that's of interest to you. And we're still looking for investors in a couple of our buildings, so reach out on that note too. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you next time, and have a great day.